Hello everyone, it's Sketchbook time. And you're invited to draw with me and leave the troubles of the world behind for just a little while. I'm starting a new sketchbook today, and no, I didn't finish my last one. But I think now is as good a time as any to let go of the past and have a new start. Today's reference comes to us via a television screenshot of the Frankenstein monster from the Filmation Groovy Ghoulies cartoon series of the early 1970s. At this point in pop culture, we were on the tail end of a resurgence in popularity of the classic monster movie films from a few decades earlier, particularly the moving pictures from Universal. The format of Groovy Ghoulies was a lot like Martin and Rowan's Laugh-In, but with the monster archetypes Universal Pictures made famous. I don't know if anyone who's watching remembers either one of those shows, but thanks to a writer's strike in the 70s and only 5 TV channels available to me when I was in my single digits, I got to experience reruns of many of the classics in their black and white and RGB glory. Additionally, if memory serves, the writing on Laugh-In and Groovy Ghoulies was extremely punny, and the jokes were complete groaners. And I loved them. I also found out that a writer for Laugh-In was also a writer for Groovy Ghoulies, so the comparison makes sense. Frankenstein's monster shows up pretty often in my sketchbooks, and I'm sure this won't be the last time he does in this one. Frankenstein, a modern-day Prometheus by Mary Shelley, is one of my favorite books of all time. As far as I can remember, I've always had a fascination with this character, from the old films to the comics, and all the various iterations that have shown up in pop culture throughout the years. I did a video where I drew Frankenstein's monster and explained why this character speaks to me before, so I'll shut my yap about that now, and if I know myself, and I think I do, I'll put a link to that video somewhere in the description of this video for you to check out if you're interested. Anyway, I thought it'd be a nice way to start a new sketchbook with a portrait of my favorite monster. I'm sketching here with a cheap mechanical pencil filled with a blue lead, as I'm often wont to do. I'm using the reference here to get down some basic shapes, but I'm not going to draw exactly what I see. I really like the shape of the head, so I'm going to do like Picasso said. Steal the shape of that monster's head. But by the end of this sketch, I plan on making it my own. A lot of times that's how I recommend using reference. Just use it to refer to, for anatomy, maybe composition, or however it might help with your sketches or pieces that you're making. Just use it as a tool to aid the creation process. You don't have to follow it verbatim. Well, I'll throw out this caveat. If you're doing a sketch or piece for practice or to learn something, maybe then you might want to follow the reference exactly. But we're having fun today, and this reference is so simple. So if you're drawing with me today, I encourage you to just use this reference to get down those basic shapes, or just use it as an influence, or whatever. Regardless, put your own spin on it and make it your own. Are you listening, Carl? It's okay. Make it your own. You know what? I was just going to go over this with a darker pencil and call it a day, but I'm going to ink it. I'll be right back. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm using Speedball Super Black ink, which, quick tip, I found that whenever I've used an ink that says it's super black, it really isn't brand new straight out of the bottle. So I always let it sit out for a day or two with the cap off so that some of the water evaporates. Then it gets to be a nice, rich, darker black with a consistency that I really like. I'm also using a Winsor Newton Series 7 sable brush, size 0, and I'll be using a 01 size micron for small details, as well as an old junky brush that I've had for a million years to fill in larger areas. When I'm inking, I often spin whatever I'm working on so that I'm pulling the brush from left to right, since I am right-handed, which makes it easier for me to get a nicer line, I think. I'll try to edit this video so as not to make you too dizzy. I have a confession, and I hate to admit it, but I haven't been inking much lately, and I am feeling a little bit rusty. Feels like I'm getting some clunky lines that I'm going to try to hide or fix if I can. That's fine though, this is in my sketchbook. It's for practice. So even if I screw up royally, I still win. Speaking of sketchbooks, I mentioned that this is the start of a new one for me. I don't know what it is, but I always come to a new sketchbook with some anxiety, even though I always tell myself and other people that sketchbooks are for practice, for getting your bad ideas out, things like that. You don't have to be perfect or precious here. Are you still with me, Shannon? You said you wanted to draw in your sketchbook more this year. That's it. You're doing great. I've heard some ideas about getting around the anxiety of starting a new sketchbook, like just doing a few pages of scribbles or just marking pages up, with no rhyme or reason to start with. I think the idea there is that maybe it sets a precedence that keeps you from getting too precious. Maybe stops you from thinking a sketchbook is ruined if you've done some great stuff, and then suddenly, do a bad page. Another idea that I've heard and done before myself is to start somewhere in the middle, and then flip around to random pages for a bit when the sketchbook is new. Again, I think maybe that helps with approaching your new sketchbook in a less precious way, so you don't get a perfectionist mindset, and you can just get down to the nitty-gritty. I think these ideas have merit, but with this one, I'm diving right in on the first page. It just feels right this time. After the turmoil of not just this past year, I think it's a good metaphor for how I want to move forward with this fresh start. And I think we could all do a little better every day. Wouldn't you agree, Stephen? And I think I'm done. Nope. Well now, I've decided to soak the bejesus out of this page and tone it with some Payne's Gray watercolor. I just picked some of this up and I have very limited experience with watercolor, going back to art school a couple decades at this point. Golly. Now I've used Copic markers to do some tones in my sketchbooks before. Never really got great at using them. Didn't practice enough, honestly, but this seems like fun. I also want to see if this is something that I can use for a comic project that I'm cooking up instead of going full color, as I can spend just as much time coloring a comic page as it takes for me to pencil and ink one. So I think I'm going to let that go. Boy, I'll tell you, this is fun. The page is so wet. This reminds me of the first time I went surfing in Half Moon Bay. Afterwards, my girlfriend at the time and I went to have some drinks and some food over at the Moss Beach Distillery. There was this ghost downstairs in the restroom. The place is haunted. It was scary. But I digress. I'm really having a great time. So, for my coup de grace, I'm going to finish this with some Pro White from a jar that I've had for at least 15 years. It's still just a little under half full, too. I had to open it with a vice grip. The Pro White itself was so mummified inside, I thought maybe it fossilized. But, like the noble sea monkey, I just added some water to the jar, and in a few minutes, it came back to life. Okay, now I'm done. If you need to spend more time with today's reference, it'll be over on my Patreon. I'll be sure to link that below. And if you're on Instagram, why don't you hashtag Sketch with Kevin, because I'd love to see what you drew today. Thanks for hanging out with me. You did a fantastic job.